Hey guys, well, what's up? Unrested back again, and man, I got a doozy for you today. I was gonna talk about why not to move to Japan right now, but I have one that came up, a story that came up that just kind of cracked me up, and I couldn't hold back on this one because it's gonna it's gonna disappear in a bit. This is gonna be a totally forgotten about story, but while it's still relevant, I want to cover it, and that is Colombian animator goes viral for allegedly lying about working on Studio Ghibli's The Boy and the Heron. Okay, so that's a lot to take in all at once. And I want to read the article because I want to make sure I get all the stuff right, and then I'm gonna talk about just like how absurd this lie is, and just like as I was listening to this story unfold, like from the second this person said they had worked on the movie, I thought, no, you definitely didn't. That would be wild. Okay, first of all, Studio Ghibli, if you don't know who they are, it's run by the very famous Miyazaki, who's made My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. Okay, they've created like the most famous anime movies you've ever heard of. Like, even if you don't watch anime, you've probably heard of these movies. They are like timeless classics. These are incredible movies that I can't remember how many years ago Howl's Moving Castle was made, but if you watched it today, you would be like enthralled by how epic the animation is. Just the designs, the creatures, the giant biomechanical flying ships in that movie. Spirited Away, just like how beautiful the nature aspects of it, how esoteric some of the yokai and creatures are created in that. Even people who don't understand the plot lines of these movies, watching them are enthralled. I have shown these to seventh graders and eighth graders who think everything is lame and stupid. And when I show them these movies, even they like stop talking and just stare at the screen and are just amazed. So these are like totally timeless. I'm showing these to kids who, and these are G and PG rated movies. I'm not showing crazy stuff in my class. So these are earned parties that they get and stuff like that. So even now, I mean, these are timeless classics. If you are working on one of these movies, you are an epic level animator. You are an epic level artist. Miyazaki, when he works on these movies, he sleeps 2 hours a day and draws for 22 hours straight. The man is a machine. When his son released Ponyo, he sat there smoking, like, just chain smoking cigarettes, and he was like, "Daff, it was okay, whatever." I mean, Ponyo was like incredible. To give you an idea, when it came to America, Matt Damon was one of the voice actors for it. That's how famous some of these movies are. Okay, so I hope I've filled you in on how epic level Studio Ghibli is. Okay, so let me read you this story now. That just like as I heard it unfold, it cracked me up. Like I was just like, who would who would try to lie about this? This would be like, do you guys know, like, I helped direct it, Citizen Kane? I was actually one of the main cameramen on Citizen Kane. Like, it's like me, like just some kind of like epic level movie that you're gonna like. Did you know I was part of that? You didn't know that? Oh, well, I was anyway. Um, Now I hope I get. I'm gonna mispronounce a lot of these names, and I apologize. Geraldine Fernandez has confirmed she did not work on The Boy and the Heron. In a statement, the Colombian admits there was never any participation in the illustration and design in the film. Okay? So, who is this woman to begin with? Geraldine Fernandez went from being on top of the world to being the object of ridicule. Ridicule, sorry. The difference between those two was simply facts. The Colombian illustrator, and this lady's already working as an illustrator, so congrats to her. She made it in the art world. So why you would foul this up by taking credit for another artist's work after you've reached this level is just like like why would you ruin this situation? If I was an illustrator, I would just shut up and illustrate. Like I would not get involved in like being like, did you know I also illustrated Akira? You remember that movie Akira? The big, mutated guy, Tetsuo on motorcycles. I helped illustrate that. If I made it to like this level, why would I lie about that? The difference between these two was simple facts. The Colombian illustrator who had claimed to have a large hand in the animation of Studio Ghibli's latest movie, The Boy and the Heron, another incredible movie, go watch it, okay, admitted she had greatly exaggerated her participation in the movie in an interview with Blue Radio. This is what she claimed. Now, this is the thing that just like blew my mind. I had to, and this is a direct quote from her, okay, taken from her live on the air when she said this, okay, so I'm not like exaggerating at all when I say this back. I had to illustrate more than 25,000 frames. It was sheet by sheet, scene by scene, everything by hand. Some things were digital. She'd originally told Colombian newspaper El Heraldo. I hope I've said that correct. The first part of the movie, almost the entire first part of the movie, which is like 15 minutes, I did that entire scene. Literally did the entire scene. The Colombian woman opens with her statement. She'd also added this in another interview with streamer Pablo Gonzalez. So she said this twice on two different shows. Okay, so this is not like her just being like, you kind of misheard me. I was misquoted by a newspaper, which I think like if people are misquoted by newspapers, that is like something that happens. I've seen my dad interviewed before for business stuff, and then later I was like, why did they write this? Like, you didn't say anything like this. And he'd be like, newspapers just write what they want, Scott. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's weird. I'll remember never to trust what I read in a newspaper. But like when you're on a live interview, especially with like a streamer where everything is like live, it's hard to be misquoted, okay? She had been exaggerating for a long time. Before that, with the story of her participation in the movie, a central focus of talk she gave at a university in, oh God, I'm going to totally mispronounce this, Barranquilla last October. So she's like asked to talk at universities for how she reached the level of being an animator for Studio Ghibli. Like she's being given opportunities to tell other students of illustration, this is how you make it to my level where you're illustrating for Miyazaki. You're sitting next to one of the most epic animators in all of history. And this is how you do it. Let me tell you how. And it's a complete lie. Can you imagine? Can you imagine having the gall to do something like this? Let's continue on. After her story went viral, The Boy and the Heron winning a Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature Film, the internet started fact-checking her story. Ooh, yeah, you might want to not latched on to something that was a Golden Globe award. First came the news that Fernandez didn't feature in the credits. Ooh, that's odd. You did the opening 15 minutes of a movie, but you're not featured in the credits? Seems a little bit odd. Japan's usually pretty good about crediting everybody. Like, even when you see the credits of an anime film, they'll have like a list of credits in multiple languages sometimes for all the different dubbing that is done in every single country. So like Japan's really good about crediting. First came the news that Fernandez didn't feature in the credits, a very strange omission for someone who claimed to have put in so much work. Then came the memes. Oh boy. Okay, all these memes are in Spanish, so I'm unable to read any of them. Finally, Fernandez admitted the lie and apologized. I worked on a couple of scenes from The Boy and the Heron. Now, when you say scenes, it's 26 pictures per second for an animation, all right? So, like, a scene, how long is a scene in a movie, right? Like, so you're still talking about doing quite a bit of work. I worked on a couple of scenes from The Boy and the Heron. I exaggerated, Fernandez admitted to El Heraldo. She clarified, it's not real that I made 25,000 frames alone. It was a team effort. I made about 200. Oh, okay, so we're still going with 200 frames. Okay, so the lie, we got to reel it in a little bit. We got to, 25,000, that's quite a bit. That is kind of odd that I wasn't credited for that. I guess maybe I better pull back my... what I said I worked on and just go with about 200. What? There has been no official confirmation of whether Fernandez did work on the movie in any capacity on her part, but Cartoon Brew did reach out to G-Kids, the film's American distributor, and was told Fernando's name does not appear anywhere in the credits because she is not noted to have worked on the movie. Okay. So we've got a bit of a problem there. This lady, and like the crazy thing is like she's interviewed in all these different newspapers all throughout Colombia. She's there like holding like a mock Golden Globe award. She's there holding this award in front of like giving speeches in front of universities. She's there like sat down in her office looking like she's hard at work, and like these big discoveries of like Colombian woman reaches to the top of the animation and illustration world by working with Studio Ghibli. Like they were so proud of her. They were, of course, of course. They have every right to be if she had actually worked on this, that she had made it to like this level. She also talked about how she had pretty much been given this job, and I don't know why they didn't talk about this in the article, but she had been given this job because she like met some of the animators while she was going to university in Tokyo, and she talks about going to Tokyo University, and it turns out she's never gone there either. And let me tell you, Tokyo University is like saying you went to Harvard, so it's like lying about going to Harvard and then lying about working for like the best movie studio ever in animation. Like, and like, why would you do it? Like, now she's losing everything. Now she's gonna lose her job. She's like been laid off from her job because they were getting a bunch of bad press. Now no one who's gonna hire you after that. Like who would be like, oh yeah, like after you did that to the last company, made up all this stuff about your background, what you had done and everything. I mean, like that's kind of sketch. And you made it that far in the illustrator world. Like she didn't use this to get into her illustration job. She already had the job, and then she had started to, and this is supposedly how the rumor started, and this is according to her. She started to like she had a group of friends she hung out with that were like all illustrator friends at work, and like they would talk about like, oh, I got this gig doing a little extra side job here for this illustration thing and this here. And she said the reason that this rumor about her had spread, and she doesn't blame herself, she doesn't ever own this and say like, yeah, it was a complete lie, I just made it all up, I don't know why I did it, I'm crazy. It eventually gets down to her saying like, look, I told a friend that I had worked on a little bit of stuff because Studio Ghibli had come to me and asked me for some just like a couple sketches, and I sent them off and they accepted them, but they weren't used in the movie, so that's why I wasn't credited. And like that friend totally blew it out of proportion. I didn't do 25,000 frames. She just talked it up too much, and we're like, who's this friend? Who's this? Who does that? No, I have a feeling, and this is at this point we're just going with like me theorizing. I have a feeling that when she met with these friends, and she sat around the table and them all talking about like side jobs and stuff like this, she's like, oh yeah, you guys got those cool side jobs? You did like maybe some illustrations for like a coffee shop or something like that. Maybe you did like a little tiny kids animation here for Columbia at a local studio. Guess what I did? That's right. Mr. Miyazaki himself called me up. That's right. He asked me to do a little bit of illustration for his newest movie. And did I do 1 frame? 2 frame? 26 frames for a second? No. Guys, listen up. Have you seen the first 15 minutes of that movie? I did the first 25,000 frames. Like, you're not lying about one picture there. You're lying about a massive chunk of work, okay? 15 minutes of animation is a lot. That might not sound like a lot to people who haven't done animation before or illustrated a lot before or even worked in like a digital program where you draw stuff up. But even doing that digitally where you can do it faster, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of work. That would be like I don't know, like probably like a good couple half a year of work for the first 15 minutes. I mean, they work on these movies for like ages. If she's doing this like as a side gig, that's like a massive side gig. And not only that, like to like not think about, well, gosh, I sure hope they credit me when the movie comes out. I hope my friends don't catch on to the fact that I wasn't really part of it when the movie comes out and there's no credits for... How did you think you were going to get away with this lie? And also, how did you think you were going to get away with people checking, like, if you actually went to Tokyo University? And then if you actually worked for the most famous animation studio in the world, why would you let everything like this get this out of hand? You're already kind of at the top of your game. All right, you made it into an illustration career that most of us as artists would die. We would like if someone said, "Okay, just cut off just your pinky and then you can be an illustrator for the rest of your life." We'd be getting the knife out. We'd be cutting pinkies. All right? Like we it is really hard to get into illustration. Like it's hard to get a good gig in illustration. I don't use my pinky that much to draw. Actually, I don't use it at all. I use mostly this figure. That's why I got the big bump on it. So I don't need the pinky. I'll take like, come on, really? This is what you decided to do? You wanted to go with this lie? Like this is the equivalent to like you maybe were a background character one time in a commercial, and then you decide to tell people like, the series Star Wars? I'm the main actor in that. If you guys didn't notice, I'm Anakin Skywalker. Like I know you guys probably didn't realize it before, but it's me. I'm Anakin Skywalker. I've been him the whole time in all those movies. I even played the role, even though it was different actors. I played the role in all three prequel movies. Like that. Like why would you try to get away with this? It's mind blowing. Like the amount of skill she would have had to have. Okay, number one, she doesn't even speak Japanese. Like they went back and like she had to. I guess she had to start to like fake a bunch of stuff because they were like, "Can you show us like your records of like how you interacted with Studio Ghibli and stuff like this?" And so she's like, "Yeah, like here's my emails back and forth with Miyazaki, me saying like these are the 25 things." Like they went back and checked it out, and of course they found out it was just like AI translation for like the Japanese she used. So she like lied about even speaking Japanese. She doesn't speak Japanese. Like of course you're not gonna go to Studio Ghibli and be like, "Gosh, hope everybody speaks Spanish here." Like like no one even speaks English there. You're not going to come there with a translator. No, there's no translator on set. They send that stuff off to G Kids to have everything localized. Sorry, Miyazaki doesn't speak any English. I think if you tried to put him on the spot to speak English, he might say hello, and that's about it. He doesn't need to. He works in a business where he's fine, and everybody there at the studio. I don't think there's many people there speaking a lot of English. There might be a go-between with localization and G Kids, but that's about it. That's probably the only person at the studio that speaks any sort of competent, casual English. So the idea that like you didn't even know the language and you said you worked for the company, like, why? Why would you do this? I lived in Japan for 15 years, learned how to speak the language, lived with the people, married a Japanese woman, am an illustrator myself, do my art and work as in the art career, and I would still never even slightly imagine trying to lie about doing this. Like the thought of me like lying about doing this would just be like, oh gosh, that would just be the silliest thing I could ever do. I mean, people would find out in a second. They'd be like, you got in there with your caveman level Japanese, Scott, and became an illustrator for Miyazaki at Studio Ghibli. Okay, buddy. Like, it's the steps she would have had gone. She would have had to go to like a university in Japan. She would have had to have all kinds of connections throughout the animation world. She would have had to start like in a low level studio to begin with. Probably had a massive amount of experience there, 7 years minimum, with like a lower level animation studio, had like the discipline of one of these manga or animation people who just work like 20 hours a day. They eat like a bowl of ramen and then go to sleep, wake up and start animating and drawing all over again. They don't take a break at all. Their work, her other works in Japanese, they would have had to have been in Japanese, would have had to start to be noticed by like bigger studios. They would have hired her on. Those bigger studios would have had to come out with a movie with her in the credits in which she did a massive amount of animation for them. And then she would have had to have been recognized by, the world at large for an incredible movie that she was part of, like something like Summer Wars or something like that. And then from there, maybe Miyazaki would have taken notice and been like, look at this Colombian lady who has somehow immersed herself in Japanese culture, been accepted in Japan, had an incredible portfolio displayed throughout years, decades of like movies that have hit number one on the charts. We've got to hire this person on. She is incredible. this is amazing that she's done this, and her art is on another level. Let's get her on here. She's got to do the first 15 minutes of a boy in his heron, the boy in the heron. Like we've got to have her. To impress Miyazaki, his own son made a movie that he sat through the whole thing, and when the media interviewed him, he was like, it's kind of okay. I don't really care about it that much. His own son. Like, if you ever have time, look up on YouTube. Miyazaki interviewed about his son's first animation release, and like, he is so blasé about his son's first movie that you're just like, damn, what would it take to impress this guy? Like, what? Like, he's super cold about it. So for a Colombian lady not speaking the language, not having ever worked in Japanese animation, not having gone to university, not having even lived in Japan before, to think she could get away with saying she was noticed by one of the biggest names in anime, and not only just noticed, but asked to do the first 15 minutes of his newest and greatest movie. What? How did you think you were gonna get out? This, I don't have enough words to explain my disbelief. Like, I had to look up more and more about this story. I started to watch more and more videos about it, and I encourage you to do so as well. Like, your mind will be blown, because there's more aspects of it that I'm not even covering, that other people went deeper into the research. I just wanted to approach it as somebody, I had friends who drew. My son went to school with the guy who drew for Fire Force manga, and like, that was a big deal. Probably Miyazaki's never even read Fire Force and doesn't care about that artist at all. And that guy is like literally in the manga business and has had an animation that's actually been released on Netflix. And probably Miyazaki would be like, I don't know what Fire Force, what? Like, that guy didn't have any dreams of ever working for Miyazaki. Like, he was just kind of like, I'm just stoked that I got published, and then it got made into a Netflix. My son went to school with that guy, and that guy wasn't about to like get into the Ghibli studio. Okay? Like, that's, and like, even me knowing that was like the closest I would have ever gotten to like, and I lived in Japan, and that's the closest I ever got to like animation and stuff. Like, I got to talk to that guy and be like, hey, it's like the fighting scenes in your manga are like really sick. And he's like, thanks, that's cool. I wasn't about to like ask that guy for a job. My level of drawing is just not on his level. Like, I can't draw, animate, do manga, write comic books, manga, or whatever, in the same way that Japanese can tell an amazing story. I don't have the breadth, the depth, or the knowledge of how to even go about it. Like I've always said, I think sometimes people don't understand that a lot of manga and animation is on another level. Like, hence it outsold all of the comics in America for the last 2 years. Like, manga and anime, I should say, are devastating the American market. Like, all manga is far more popular than any comic book right now in America. And like, this, I mean, I've never heard anything else this lady's ever done. I never heard her name until she got boosted by this article kind of calling her out for lying about doing 25,000 frames for Miyazaki's newest film. So, what? So, but at the end of the day, she blamed her friends. She said, like, one of my friends just blew it out of proportion about how much I worked on this. I did some, like, character sketches. And still, like, no one's seen these character sketches that she's done. She supposedly did, like, I guess what you'd call, like, design sketches or, like, character sketches where, like, imagine someone said, I have this idea of a boy and a heron, and I need sketches of what I think the boy should look like, as far as being sort of this feral looking kid and a graceful heron. And then I said, okay, let me draw you out like, 10 or 20 sketches of like what I think their clothes might be designed like and their build and everything like that. And she's still saying she did those, which there's still no proof. No one's seen these sketches. Like, newspapers have asked her now, well, can you at least like send us those so we can confirm that like you didn't totally lie? No, she's never sent those. She's kind of cut herself off. She's like blocked everything. And now, this is the craziest part. Now she's hired a lawyer. Now she has hired a lawyer to say that these newspapers and stuff calling her out, she's thinking about suing them for defamation. because it's ruining her life and her career. She's lost her job and nobody wants to hire her, and now she's thinking about suing these newspapers. Now, look, I don't know how defamation laws work in Colombia. I have no clue. I know, like, in Japan, they're way more strict than America, but, like, if they work like they do in America, the courts are going to laugh that out of the system. I mean, you lied about everything. People said you lied about everything, and now you're angry at them for saying you lied about everything. Like, that does not compute. I don't know how fair or how defamation laws work in Colombia, but if they work anything close to America, then I mean, you don't have a case. I don't. Can you imagine the gall? The gall. I guess a person who would lie this big to begin with, like, I guess that this is what they would do. Hire a lawyer to be like, hey, how dare you call me out on my own lie? You know what I mean? I guess this is the modus operandi for a person like this, with this narcissistic, insane, pathological liar personality. Holy cow. So what do you guys think? Do you understand now why I had to, like, do this story? This story just, like, blew my mind. I was just like, oh my god, like, how how did you think you were going to get away with this? This is so funny to me. Like, do I feel any pity for her? Not really. Not really too much. I think it sucks she lost her job, but I mean, that's kind of like kicking a wall and, being upset that you broke your foot. Like, do I blame the wall? I don't know what I do there. Like, like the... How do you put yourself in this situation? I don't get it. I don't understand. How do you let your ego get, like, this untamed? Oh well. The internet never ceases to amaze me. It's incredible. I love it. I love stories like this where people, especially when it's like they want to infuse themselves with something amazing in Japanese culture, yet they do zero research to see how impossible that would be to lie about in Japanese culture. I guess that's the aspect that always amazes me. Don't they call it like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where, like, the less you know about a certain thing, the more you think you do know? That's that's definitely apparent in this situation. Incredible, incredible. Anyway, yeah, I want to hear your comments down below. Just a little bit of upkeep here at the end of the video. I'm mostly just going to focus on doing videos here on Unrested for right now. My other channel, I'm messing with doing the RPG stuff and showing some art on there, but I'm just having more fun. I'm just having a lot more fun here on Unrested. Like, I just love BSing with you guys on here, catching up, once a week video. Feels cozy, feels good, feels nice to talk to you guys, and the topics, I always feel like I have, like, a lot more energy and I can just sit down and talk about them. Future videos, I do want to talk about why it might not be the best time to go to Japan and when I think it will kind of turn around, that it is good to go there. I also want to kind of talk about the youth of today. Some kind of things, like, I'm seeing some parallels between Japan and America as far as people, like, kind of giving up hope sometimes, and I want to talk about, like, why you shouldn't give up hope, why there's still, like, things you can pursue to, like, improve your life and things like that I see it happen sometimes in Japan and what people do, and, like, what I'm seeing as parallels in America and how people could, like, use some Eastern techniques to kind of improve their life. I don't know how to fully explain it, but I've got an idea in my head for, like, I've seen people run into these problems in Japan, and this is what I saw them do to overcome those problems, and that was a really good strategy. And I think if some Americans just took a step back for a second, like, took a deep breath, let it out slow, got focused, they could get past some of these, like, hurdles in their life. Like, I'm not going to try and heal the world, that's not going to happen, but there are certain things that I learned about in Japan that I feel like I came there kind of as a cocky American at some points, where I thought, like, yo, America, the best country ever. And then I got to see it from, like, the outside, and I was like, oh, not everything's perfect. Actually, there's some stuff Japan does that's a lot better. And there's some stuff they do that's kind of screwy, don't get me wrong. There's some, like, really backward stuff Japan does. It's not so great. But I think there's some techniques they have to, like, stabilize their life. Like, when we think of the Japanese, we think of them as very calm, kind of very balanced. You don't see them get overly political. You don't see them have these like arguments or culture wars online like we're seeing here in America all the time. And there's a good reason behind that. It's kind of like how they balance and live their life. And I think if some of these attitudes were adapted to American life, it would really smooth a lot of things out in the culture. Not saying everybody needs to listen to these or these are the solve all for all problems in America, but I would like to take some Eastern influence and bring it over here because it would be like a lot more positive than some of this other like weird, I don't know, this like red pill, like men versus women, Democrat versus Republican bullshit that I see on YouTube all the time now that I'm just like, guys, it's not a battle. We're not here to fight each other. Like if we work in harmony like the Japanese do, there's a lot more we could accomplish and things could be heaven if we made it heaven. Like it's that's that I will say that's one of the things that really impacted me the most when I got here. But I'll talk about that more later. I'm starting to get off on a tangent. I want to cover why it's not such a great idea to go to Japan right now, and then start to bring over like Eastern influences. I think would probably help people smooth out a lot of things in their life if they just adapted to these. And let me know what you think about that in the comments below, guys. This was a fun, super fun video to talk about. Since I heard about this on Sunday, and I almost was like, should I do an extra video during the middle of the week? I'm like, no, Scott, contain yourself, hold it, release it today on Saturday, and your audience will hopefully enjoy. I hope you enjoyed that story today. So much fun to go over people making up crazy BS in their head about how Japan works. I love it. Until next time, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you again real soon.